Control, this is dispatch. We've got a live anomaly. Repeat. A call came from inside cell D4. Solitary, locked, no phone on record. Requesting immediate eyes. Something's wrong. Casefile 102B is back online.
They weren't supposed to hear anything from that cell. D4 had been sealed for over 48 hours. Aaron Kessler, the man inside, was a low-priority inmate. No affiliations, no priors before this, no visitors, no known family. That Tuesday, he was serving day 9 of a 30-day hold. What triggered the alarm wasn't a breach or a fight. It was a phone call. At precisely 2:17 a.m., a signal was logged from inside cell D4. The prison's internal monitoring system flagged it as a mobile connection attempt, which was impossible. There were no phones in solitary, no guards entered, no drop points, and no one had been near that cell since the night before. The control room replayed the waveform, and the audio confirmed it. A faint call had been placed. A voice said, only 6 words. "You forgot me. I remember you." Sergeant Miller was the first to arrive at the cell. He walked the long hallway with Officer Vance, flashlight steady, boots echoing on the concrete floor. Aaron sat upright on his cot, back, against the wall, both hands on his knees, still, eyes forward, expression unreadable. He didn't move until Miller called his name. "Aaron Kessler, do you know why we're here?" Aaron looked up slowly. His eyes were bloodshot. Not from drugs, not from rage. They looked used, as if something had pulled him through 100 sleepless nights in a single hour. "The call," he muttered. "It wasn't for you." The officers exchanged glances. Vance stepped in. No sign of contraband, no wires, no phones, not even scratches in the concrete. Nothing that could explain the signal. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the overhead light. Then Miller noticed something. The air, it felt off, heavy, static. "Was anyone in here?" Miller asked. "No," Aaron replied, calmer now. "No one alive. They took him to the tech wing, ran a scan, no devices on his person." The trace showed the call was made using a ghost protocol, the kind of signal bounce used in high-level cybercrime. But there was no access to the outside. And the endpoint? It wasn't a phone number. It was a location. GPS coordinates that traced back to a shut-down correctional facility, closed since 2003. Lieutenant Sharp ordered a temporary lockdown of D Block. Internal Affairs was notified. The footage from 217 was pulled. Cameras were functioning, or so they thought. Every frame from 212 to 219 was corrupted. The feed wasn't lost, it was overwritten. The only visible moment was a single still. Aaron sitting cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, as if waiting for something. In the frame, there was a blurred shape behind him, unregistered. No heat signature, no explanation. The prison's tech lead, Ramirez, isolated the audio and ran it through spectral analysis. "You forgot me. I remember you." The voice was distorted, genderless, but familiar. And when filtered through deep wave software, one anomaly stood out. The waveform matched a known inmate profile, someone who died 6 years earlier, in that same facility. Aaron was placed under observation. Psychiatric eval came back inconclusive. No psychosis, no hallucination indicators. Just one note scribbled at the bottom of the file. PTSD potential. Trauma source unknown, seems to be waiting. That night, the guards assigned to cell D4 requested reassignment. One of them, Torres, left a voice note in his car before vanishing off shift. The call wasn't from here, and it wasn't meant for now. The file was labeled Case 102B and then sealed. But at 3:04 a.m., the same signal pulsed again, from a different cell. They called me at 3:08 a.m. I was already half awake, staring at the blue glow of my home security panel, unsure if the hum in my head was from caffeine withdrawal or the weight of 20 years on this job. My name is Marcus Callan, Security Systems Supervisor for Blackridge Correctional. I don't usually get spooked. I deal in cables, blind spots, and firewall breaches, not ghost stories. But that night, I didn't feel like the one in control. I felt watched. The call wasn't from a guard. It came from the prison's auto-diagnostic, AI. It flagged a secondary spike, a duplicate signal, originating from a cell that didn't exist in the current population matrix, C9. I froze. That unit was condemned years ago. Structural instability, they said. But that wasn't the full story. We shut it down because inmates kept having incidents, hallucinations, voices, panic attacks. Some claimed something whispered to them at night. I remember the reports because I was the one who signed off on the electromagnetic dampening, which, by the way, didn't fix a damn thing. At 3:04, a signal identical to the one from D4 activated. Same waveform, same bounce, same duration. This time, no one picked up. But the system still registered a recipient. It shouldn't have been possible. No SIM, no hardware, just data born from nowhere. And it wasn't just a glitch. This was patterned, intentional, like someone, or something, was dialing a number only it remembered. I drove to the prison myself. Couldn't trust second-hand eyes. On the way, I called Lieutenant Monroe. She ran internal archives. If there was anyone who could make sense of ghost data, it was her. She didn't even ask questions, just said, "Meet me at the North Wing." That told me everything. She already knew this wasn't the first time. The North Wing is like walking through a tomb. Lights buzz louder, air feels tighter. No cameras are active. They were cut in 2019, not for privacy, for containment. Cell C9 was at the very end of the corridor, marked with an old placard no one had bothered to remove. The door was sealed. 3 locks, magnetic seal, reinforced. Bolts. I ran the handheld scanner across it. Green lights. No breach. But the biometric temp sensor blinked red. No read. That's when I felt it. A pressure in the room. Like the kind you feel before a thunderstorm, when your skin tingles and your thoughts get quieter. Monroe stood beside me. She didn't say anything, just pointed at the door. "It's waking up again," she whispered. I didn't ask what she meant. I just unlocked it. Inside, the cell was as empty as a textbook on its final page. Peeling paint, faint water damage, rust around. The bed frame bolts. No window, only steel. But one thing stood out. On the far wall, scratched faintly into the surface, was a number, 102B, the same case file as Aaron Kessler. And beneath it, drawn in charcoal or maybe blood, it wasn't clear, a circle with a vertical line sliced clean through the middle. I'd seen that symbol once before, in an old black site dossier that Monroe classified under anomalous events. But it wasn't supposed to exist here. I looked at Monroe. She didn't blink. "They used to mark subjects with that," she muttered. "The ones who remembered too much." She pulled out her phone and took a photo, but the screen went black. Battery drained in seconds. Mine followed. The only light left was the emergency bulb above the door, and even that flickered. Back in the tech room, I pulled the access logs again. What I found made me stop breathing. This wasn't the second signal, it was the 59th. 59 identical waveforms, dating back to 2004, all at 2:17 a.m. Exactly. All scrubbed by a system patch 3 months ago. Somehow, the prison had been receiving these transmissions for years, and no one knew. I ran a deep trace on the latest call. The endpoint wasn't a phone, it was a fixed coordinate. I checked the map overlay. The dot blinked in the center of the closed Larchfield Correctional Facility. That site's been abandoned since a riot in '03. 5 dead, 1 missing. The missing. Inmate? Name: Ewan Mathers. I didn't believe in coincidences, but I believed in patterns. I went into the hard archives, not digital, physical, the kind that still smelled like glue and regret. Mather's file was barely legible, age 29, cause of death, asphyxiation. Final note, inmate reportedly speaking to himself. Last known words, he said he'll call again. Below that, someone had scribbled, transferred to 102B. But 102B wasn't a location. It was a classification. I returned to the live logs, and just before I shut down the terminal, the waveform from the 304 signal began pulsing again. Not active, just looping, like an echo stuck between walls. I watched the spectrogram closely. At the 6-second mark, I swear, the signal formed letters. Not audible ones, visual. I isolated the peaks and valleys, 7 syllables. And when I overlaid them into text, it spelled a name. Callan. It spelled my name. I shut everything down. Hard reset. Pulled the server offline. But before the system, shut. The voice played one last time. Slower, clearer. And now it said, "You forgot me. I remember you." Still, waiting. I didn't go home after that. I just sat in my office, waiting. I don't know for what. There's a rule they teach in system security. You never answer a signal you don't understand. Interference, cross-frequency noise, spoofed ID. It's usually garbage. But what if the signal knows your name? What if it waits for you? To listen? I spent the next 12 hours reviewing every camera feed, call log, and system patch from the last 20 years. Not because I was told to. No one told me anything. I just needed to prove to myself that I wasn't losing it. That what I saw, what I heard, hadn't crawled up from some corner of my mind. But the deeper I looked, the more the system pushed back. Footage flickered out. Passwords failed. Access denied on admin-level accounts I personally set up. Someone, or something, had locked me out of my own system. I wasn't just watching a prison anymore. I was watching a story play itself through the walls, and I didn't write it. I needed someone to confirm it wasn't just me. So I called Torres, the night guard, who had asked to be reassigned from D Block after the first signal. He hadn't been answering calls since his shift. I drove to his place, a trailer lot 5 miles from the edge of town. His car was in the driveway, engine cold. Inside, lights were on. Coffee cup on the table, half full. TV buzzing static. No Torres. I almost missed it. The phone. Not his cell. An old landline, off the hook. Next to it, a small notepad. One word scrawled. In capital letters, written over and over. Don't pick up. There was no sign of struggle. No signs at all. Just absence. Like he'd stepped out of the world between one breath and the next. I took the note and left. I didn't even bother calling it in. What would I say? A ghost call made my guard disappear. I returned to the prison just before sunset. That's when Monroe found me. Her eyes were different now. Hollow, almost afraid. She'd pulled the original logs from 2003, the Larchfield riot. She showed me the official report. Said 5 inmates died, but the coroner's ledger only had 4 names. The 5th page was blank, except for the code, 102B. Do you know what that really is? She asked. I shook my head. It's not a case file. It's a designation used for psychological outliers, subjects who exhibit impossible memory retention and time displacement symptoms. People who claim to remember things they couldn't possibly know, events they never lived. She handed me a photo. It was a scan from a confiscated journal found in cell D4 6 years ago, after Ewan Mathers died. The handwriting didn't match his, but the entry was dated a full week after his death. The page read, "He calls at 2:17. He always calls. If you answer, you remember. And if you remember, you're his now." That night, I went back to the tech bay alone. I knew it was dangerous. I knew I was crossing a line I couldn't come back from. but I had to know. I rebuilt the firewall, reinstalled the trace software, and opened the waveform from the 304 call. I isolated the distortion, layered it against the oldest call we had on file. Both waveforms pulsed identically, until the 6th second. Then one changed, not in sound, in feeling. It's hard to explain, but it's like it leaned forward, like it knew I was listening. I don't mean metaphorically, I mean I felt it, like someone breathing on my neck. The audio broke pattern. A whisper emerged, this time not in English. I ran it through a phonetic translator. It wasn't a known language, but it matched fragments from an old prisoner tattoo database, a forgotten dialect used by inmates in the 1980s, mostly at Larchfield. The translation came back. You heard me once. You owe me twice. And then, for the first time, the signal flipped. Instead of receiving a transmission, the system initiated one. It dialed out. I didn't touch anything. My hands weren't even near the keyboard. The interface moved on. Its own, pinged a location outside state jurisdiction, somewhere in the Nevada desert. No address. Just open ground. A tone rang out through the speakers. Long, hollow, then a voice. Aaron isn't the last. Click. The line dropped. The call logged itself as outgoing, but no trace was left in the server. It was as if the event unhappened, except I had the audio still playing in my headset. That voice didn't belong to any known inmate. It didn't even sound human. It was layered, like it spoke across dimensions, like it wasn't meant to be recorded, only received. That's when I noticed something on the console screen. A ba. New file had appeared. No timestamp, no creation data, just a name, recall 102B. I opened it. There were photos of me. Not surveillance shots, not prison footage. Childhood pictures, graduation, my wedding. All ones I hadn't seen in years. Some I didn't even know existed. And they were aging backward. Each image slightly earlier than the last. Until the final one was a sonogram, my mother's. I shut the whole system down, yanked the mainline power. I left the prison that night without speaking to anyone. No report, no log entry. I drove for hours. No music, no phone, just silence. But around 2:16 a.m., my car radio lit up on its own. All frequencies, static. Then one, just one, came through clear. You forgot me. I didn't sleep after the radio turned on. I didn't even blink for a while. I just kept hearing it. Not the voice, not the words, but that feeling it left behind. That hollow vibration, like something had crawled into my memory and lit. A match. It wasn't just that the voice knew me, it was that it remembered more than I did. Things I had never told anyone. Things I hadn't even lived. Not yet. By the time I pulled back into Black Ridge's lot, the sun was rising in shades of bruised red. I parked far from the gate, hoping the air would reset my mind. It didn't. My badge still scanned green at the security gate, but I hesitated before walking through. I stared at the lock, at the metal, at the walls I'd helped design and protect for years. Suddenly they looked like they weren't holding people in. They were keeping something out. Or worse, keeping something alive. Monroe was already inside when I got to the security hub. She didn't speak. She didn't even look up. She just slid a file across the desk toward me. Top secret clearance. Eyes only. You ever hear of the reinstatement protocol? She asked. I shook my head. She opened the file for me. It wasn't about Aaron Kessler. It wasn't about Ewan Mathers either. It was about something called the Black Echo, a theoretical field of residual memory transmissions recorded not on tape, but in the walls of buildings. The theory claimed that trauma, violent, unresolved, or suppressed, could imprint itself into physical environments like scars in the electromagnetic field, prisons, asylums, abandoned churches. Some places didn't just hold memories, they replayed them, on loops, to anyone who could hear. The protocol was designed to monitor such anomalies and contain them. Most of the cases were dismissed as paranoia or psychosis, but one location was never closed despite multiple reports. Blackridge, our prison. The deeper I read, the colder my hands felt. Case after case, guards disappearing, inmates going silent. One officer went blind after entering cell C9 for less than 2 minutes. His last words were, "They remember me." Another prisoner carved 102B into his chest and claimed he was answering the call. Every incident occurred at 2:17 a.m. Every single one. I looked up at Monroe. "Why are you showing me this now?" "Because it's not just a call, Callan," she said. "It's a signal waiting for someone specific, someone who can hear it and respond." I tried to dismiss it, told myself it was psychological projection, but part of me knew better. The sonogram photo, the name file, the missing time gaps in the system, it all pointed back to me. But why me? Why now? Monroe handed me a small cassette recorder. "This was left in the warden's office in 2006, she said. "No one knows who left it, no prints, no origin. The message repeats every 45 minutes. I pressed play. The voice was mine. But not now me. It was older, rougher, broken. My voice said, "You'll try to stop it. You'll run. But you already answered, and you always do." I dropped the recorder. It clattered to the floor and played on loop. That's when the facility lights dimmed. A security alarm buzzed on the console. Low frequency, like a heartbeat. Not loud, just present. I checked the board. One sensor triggered. Cell D4. I didn't want to go back there, but I knew I had to. I took the long hall alone. No guards this time, no backup. Just me and the silence. A silence that felt like it was listening now. Every step toward Aaron's cell pulled a little. More memory out of me. I remembered a time I'd forgotten. A voice whispering in my sleep when I was 6. A hospital room. My mother crying. A dark hallway. A shadow saying, "We'll call you soon." I stopped in front of D4. The door was slightly open. That shouldn't have been possible. Aaron was gone. No blood, no sign of forced exit. Just an empty cot, a single sheet folded neatly on top. But etched into the far wall, newly scratched, still flaking from pressure, were the words I remembered. "You will too." Below it, the circle again, line through the center. But this time, it wasn't empty. Inside the circle was an eye, open, looking directly at the door. At me. I turned and ran. Not out of panic, out of instinct, like a fire had. Started inside my skull and was trying to escape. Back in the main office, Monroe was gone. Her desk cleared, her phone disconnected, even her nameplate removed. I checked the visitor logs. No exit swipe, no vehicle logs, no record she'd ever worked here, but she had. I knew she had. I opened her archived files. They were empty, except for one, flagged recalled. It had no description, just a single image, a mirror, and in its reflection, me, but younger, maybe 16, wearing a hospital gown. And behind me, Aaron standing, not in prison clothes, but in black, with the same circle symbol stitched across his chest. You ever have a memory crawl out of the dark, not like a thought, but like a presence? Like it's been waiting for you to notice it. And the moment you do, it starts breathing again. I sat there staring at the photo. Me, in a hospital gown, 16 years old, looking dead into the lens like I knew what was coming. But the part that ruined me, the part I couldn't look away from, was Aaron, standing behind me in black, smiling. He wasn't older. He wasn't younger. He looked exactly as he did now, exactly. I should have walked out then. I should have burned the files, deleted the logs, and left the prison for good. But something pulled at me, deeper than curiosity. It was hunger. A kind of gravitational pull inside my bones. Like part of me already belonged to this thing, and the rest of me was just catching up. I walked back to the system's core, one more time. Not to shut anything down, but to listen. I turned off all external cameras, killed the lights, powered up the deep wave scanner again. This time I didn't filter anything. I let the signal play raw, and as soon as I did, the temperature dropped. The monitor lit up without me touching it. A single file opened. He called you first. Below that, a countdown. 2002, 16:59. It was ticking backwards. I felt the pulse before I heard it, like a heartbeat. Not in the room, but in me. Then, the screen glitched. And what came next didn't play like a video or an audio file. It was a memory, but not mine. The screen showed a hospital room. A teenage boy restrained on a gurney, nurses screaming, lights flickering, a doctor shouting, "He's back again! Contain him!" And then, silence. The boy turned his head. It was me, but not me. He looked older inside, like whatever was behind his eyes had lived centuries in isolation. He whispered something to the nurse, and though I couldn't hear, the transcript fed into the screen automatically. He calls again tonight, and this time, he'll finish it. Then the boy turned to look straight at the camera, straight at me, and mouthed the words, "Answer." I gasped. The room went black. Power out, everything dead, except the heartbeat in my ears and the glow of one device still running. The old prison landline. It was ringing. One ring. 2, 3. I didn't move. 4. I stepped closer. 5. The phone had no cord, no jack, just the receiver, pulsing light at the center. 6. And then it stopped. The silence was worse than the ringing. Stared at the phone for what felt like hours. Then, it spoke. Not a ring. Not a voice. Just a feeling that translated into thought. "You already answered." I collapsed. Not unconscious, just emptied, like something had been taken from me and filled with something older. When I came to, I wasn't alone. Aaron was sitting across from me. Not behind a cell door, not under surveillance, just there. He smiled. "You finally remember," he said. "What is this?" I whispered. "Not what. When," he said. "The first time you heard the call, you were 6. You didn't understand it then, but you felt it. That's why they put you in the hospital. That's why they tried to erase it. They did it to me too," he interrupted. "We're echoes, fragments of a signal that's been looping longer than this place has existed. But you were always the receiver." He stood. No more files, no more cells, no more pretending. I looked around the room. Everything frozen, not in time, in purpose. Like the entire structure had paused for this moment. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to remember the truth," he said. "You were never just the guard. You were the first inmate." He stepped toward the console, and the monitors turned on, showing clips, not from the prison, but from my life. First-person memories, birthday parties, classrooms, walking to school. But always with someone watching. A shadow at the edge of the frame. A voice calling from behind doors I never opened. And in each memory, at 2:17, every time. "You were designed to forget," Aaron said. "But now that you've answered, it's over. The loop breaks tonight." He placed his hand on the console, and every door in D block unlocked, one by one. I ran. Back through the halls, past empty cells now lit with cold blue light. Whispers trailing me. Names I didn't know but somehow recognized. I reached the exit. Punched. In my code, red light, access, denied, again, denied. Then the screen blinked once and displayed, "Recall complete." I looked up, and the last thing I saw before the lights went out was me, standing at the end of the hallway, smiling, in black, with the circle stitched across my chest. Epilogue, narrated softly. They sealed the file. They'll say Aaron escaped. They'll say I disappeared. But the call will come again. It always does. At 2:17, and when it does, don't answer. Unless you already have.